Buffy kissed me over Buffy.
What did he do first? He
Kissed.
if it was kissed.
Caught.
If we watch Nathan, you'll see he's putting so much energy into pulling the print off the page, literally glued to the print, or guessing, that it takes too much time for him to figure out how what he just read, in fact, relates to what he already knows, so his comprehension is nil. These early difficulties portend not only difficulties in writing, difficulties in understanding content,
I can.
but critical self-esteem issues that fall much more rapidly than we ever thought. What's surprising to mom and dad and teachers who don't understand this is that he'll carry on a brilliant conversation with you all day long.
I think that's the reason they ran away?
Yeah, to get work.
So you won't see it in oral language, and in fact, the youngsters will impress you many times because they are very articulate, they are very erudite, and it's only when they're confronted with the written language that it will begin to show up.
I remember they were chasing.
Chase.
Chase. Let's cover this up a minute. What happened after it?
By the end of the first grade, we can watch youngsters like Nathan begin to avoid and escape reading. And many kids will actually begin to look like they have attentional difficulties because of that. They'll respond to the teacher's questions impulsively, or they'll be distracted easily, or they'll come off the task. Not because they have attentional difficulties per se, but because they're trying to get away from something extremely painful.
So Nathan's parents feel they have an answer. A tiny quirk in Nathan's mental wiring has completely tangled his ability to learn. When we return to Nathan's story, we'll watch his parents discover that sorting out that tangle will be more of a challenge than they would ever have guessed. But first, let's meet a young girl from Southern California whose mind poses another perplexing mystery. 11-year-old Lauren Smith is creative and bright, and at times more than a little exasperating to her parents.
Oh, Lord, she dawdles. Mike describes her as the only person he knows who can be taking a shower and forget what she's doing. You know, and so she'll be in the midst of whatever she's supposed to be doing, and she's a million miles away.
Lauren, time to get up, hon.
The mind just wanders constantly.
Lauren, your waffles are almost ready.
I just pretty much goof off the entire morning, make everything take time that didn't need to take time.
Lauren, what are you doing at school today? I don't know.
Let's say I need to do homework, or I draw a picture, or I dust my desk, or with paintbrushes, anything I could do besides homework I'd do.
Thursday.
I went back and reread her report cards to see how her teacher saw her. It was things like doesn't complete her work, talks out of turn, or carries on conversations with her neighbor.
I was thinking there was a problem with me, and I was doing things wrong because that was what people were telling me at school, that I was dumb and I couldn't do anything correctly. And
Lauren, where's your lunchbox?
Thursday? I set it there. All right, I'm gonna go check the car, okay?
Okay.
I was unpopular, and I was quite lonely, not many friends. People, they say that they want to be my friends, but they sure don't act like it.
There was one particularly heartbreaking episode in first grade.
There was a little girl who made her a promise. Lauren would be taken to Disney World if Lauren did all the things that this little girl told her she had to do.
The bargain included never playing with any other children, and through the first grade, Lauren actually kept it.
I found out she took a couple of friends to Disney World, and I wasn't invited. And it really made me feel bad.
What's it like to have no real friends?
Not fun at all. It's quite bad and it's no fun because if you don't have any friends, then you can't really do much in life, and you start thinking, what's the point in life if you don't have many friends? I didn't get there yet, but thank goodness.
Amazingly, Lauren's social problems were, in fact, a vital clue to the nature of her learning problems.
It's a kind of reading problem. Just as you may not be able to read a sentence and read it the way other kids do, you may not be able to read a social scene. You may not be able to see that child is talking to that child, so I shouldn't interrupt. You may simply see that child and say, oh, I want to tell that child something because I like that person. And you may barge right into the conversation. What's that?
That's the exact same thing except in a...
When Dr. Levine visited Lauren, he was not surprised that she was so disorganized.
This generally the way you organize your notebook? This is Now I'm interested
It's a
in
lot better than my other notebook.
It is? This is one of your best notebooks.
Yeah.
Lauren's notebook is a mishmash of unnecessary junk and original poetry.
I would look at a poem and it was wonderful, creative, just wonderful, perceptive poem reflecting the sensitivity and freedom of her thinking. And then we'd turn to another page and there'd be a crumpled up piece of paper there. And this is, how do we classify this?
Trash.
Trash, okay. She wasn't able to differentiate between trash and masterpieces.
Trash.
Right alongside of all of these traits is a little girl who's incredibly creative, fanciful, and eccentric. The question is, how do we help her get her act together without changing her very much?
This new approach to learning differences has an answer for Lauren that is surprising in its simplicity. Lauren needs a kind of focus coach.
Someone who, just like a football coach, coaches you to do this, do that. Someone to say, those pieces of paper, that's trash, those pieces of paper, that's notes, you know, let's separate those two, let's reorganize this, and literally coach her academically, also socially. That group of friends, you know, when you go into that group, don't walk in talking. First go in, listen, make eye contact, and then bring up what you have to say. So you can coach socially as well as you coach academically and coach organizationally.
You're obviously bright, you're very capable.
But learning how to focus is only part of the answer. Dr. Skip Baker is convinced that before Lauren can truly learn, a flaw in her brain chemistry needs to be addressed.
What I'd like to do is to go over with you the first two TOVAs that we did.
He explains how the brain's chemistry works.
As we work with our brain, remember, it's only the front part of the brain, right above the eyes, that has to do with your concentration. It's not the whole brain.
A chemical in the brain, dopamine, stimulates nerves that sustain attention.
Now, that people are built with differences in the way that dopamine transmission works. Either you don't have enough, you have different receptors over here that aren't working very well.
Dr. Baker believes that in Lauren's brain, the dopamine delivery system isn't working properly, so her concentration lapses much more quickly.
And there are nerve pathways that go right to that part.
He believes that Lauren's dopamine can be recharged and her focus restored if she takes a stimulant medication such as Ritalin.
Parts of the brain are energized by different nerve pathways.
My suspicion is, on the basis of experience, I think it's going to turn her around and make things so much easier for her.
This is the TOVA test that we did with the single dose of Ritalin. There was almost a 2 standard deviation jump in auditory processing in association with the Ritalin. That's a dramatic, dramatic difference.
Dr. Baker's recommendation has jolted the family into a controversy raging across America. Are we raising a generation of over-medicated kids? Lauren's father, Mike, feels that there must be other options.